Hello and welcome to a baggage claim Q&A about Harry and Meghan. So let's get started. Can you talk about the modern culture of revelation? Harry had revealed a lot of personal things in his memoir. Did old generations have a point when it came to the idea that we should not spill every private thought out into public? Is talking about our feelings all the time actually good for our mental health? In what ways are our modern attitudes about our private lives good or bad?
Clinical research says that the more you think about yourself, the more miserable you tend to be, which sounds strange, but the over-rumination of how you're feeling all the time creates this really intense self-conscious anxiety. And one of the things I noticed when I was in a relationship with a narcissist was that my self-consciousness and anxiety just went through the roof. And that's because he was starting the process of reframing my past to help me see that he's the only one who has ever loved me. So the more I was thinking about how wronged I was in my past and how that had impacted me today, the more my resentment and anger was growing. Even the happiest person, if they really think about all the ways that their life sucks, they will likely find it. You can sink yourself in a pit of despair. And I see that in Harry, and a lot of people have pointed this out, that he keeps talking about how happy he is, but he looks miserable. And the lovely moments between him and Meghan seem to be unveiled only for the camera. And when the flash is over, his face immediately falls. So what does this have to do with oversharing? Because Harry is now convinced that his time with the family was full of misery. Because of all that reframing, he now has this axe to grind with his family. And the best way for him to do it is to go against one of their most important dictums: never complain, never explain. That saying also perfectly lines up with honor culture, which is the culture that used to be more common in America and the UK than it is now. According to honor culture, personal problems are just that, personal, and really shouldn't be shared beyond your circle of people you trust. But now we see people complaining, oversharing, washing dirty laundry in public, all under the guise of public service and mental health. And I'm not saying mental health is not important, but I do think that it's a convenient cover for saying things that are either intended to get sympathy and attention, or in this case, a betrayal of privacy. If you recall, Harry used a similar excuse to justify why he shared his kill count when he was in Afghanistan, stating that it was to help the mental health of other soldiers.
Hey, so do you ever wish you could go back to being a child and...
Yes.
What?
Do you want to be a child?
What? No. I was just agreeing with whatever. What were you gonna say?
Okay, I was gonna ask you if you ever miss being a child and eating all the cereal you could ever want.
Yes, and never worry about sugar.
Yeah, sugar is the worst.
But kind of the best.
Yeah. And we didn't need to worry about gluten.
Yeah, gluten sucks. As far as my list of greatest nemesis go, gluten's at the top.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and back pain, totally. I would say it's neck and neck. Also, my neck hurts a lot.
Well, I'm gonna fix all of your problems. Well, not the back thing.
What?
Introducing MagicSpoon.
Introducing. They've been around since 2019.
Introducing for the first time on my channel, MagicSpoon, a cereal that's high in protein with 0 grams of sugar. It's 4 to 5 net carbs and only 140 calories. Say goodbye to eating that bowl of sugar every day. And say hello to a wholesome, high-quality cereal that'll make you think back to your childhood where backaches were something old people worried about, but not you. What you need to worry about is what flavor you're gonna dig into today thanks to the variety pack. Which one's your favorite?
I'm eating all of them.
Why? Well, my favorite flavor is cocoa, and if you want to discover what your favorite flavor is, as well as start your new year off right, click the link in the description to grab yourself a variety pack of MagicSpoon. Make sure to use the promo code BaggageClaim at checkout, or go to magicspoon.com/baggageclaim to get $5 off any order.
This is so good.
And MagicSpoon is so confident in their product, it's backed by a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked.
It's definitely gonna be my new mid-morning, mid-afternoon, and midnight snack.
So click the link below or scan the QR code on the screen and use the code BaggageClaim to get $5 off. Or go to magicspoon.com/baggageclaim to save $5 today. Thanks, MagicSpoon! It would be interesting to hear how Meghan has altered Harry's perception of his past entirely. He seemed to be happy enough with his life and family prior to Meghan coming along. Now he has a completely different view of his past. Would love to hear a video on how narcissists can alter your perception of previous experiences.
To understand this, we have to first talk about why narcissists do this. It's typically because they want your attention. Full attention, good or bad. So they need to start to isolate you from anyone that can take your attention. They also want to have this intense hold on you. And if you have strong relationships with other people, they might successfully talk you out of whatever delusion the narcissist wants you to buy into. This is also why I think Meghan kept Harry away from her father. Because how is it that the two of them have been dating for a bit and are about to get married and he still hasn't met Meghan's father? And I think it's because there are lies that she told Harry that she didn't want her father to accidentally refute. Now, in order for a narcissist to gain control over you, you have to first be susceptible to that. Generally, people who are insecure are great targets for narcissists because they use that insecurity to try and separate you from your family and friends. They do this by shining a really bright, loving light on you, as if they see you like you've always wanted to be seen, but never ever seen by anyone else. This is why it feels so much like love when you're first with a narcissist, because they're very good at mimicking sincerity in the beginning. It's later that their games fall apart, but they're really good at pretense in order to manipulate. They've done it their whole lives. Harry's big chip on his shoulder is about him being the spare, obviously, and Meghan really played up how she's the only one who doesn't see him like that. She helped him see that he didn't need to take a backseat role in anything, which sounds like a good thing, but it's not. In current culture, everyone wants to be the main character. Oh, you're giving main character energy. But to be part of a family, and a family that is such an ancient institution, means you have to recognize where to step up and when to step aside. It's a collaborative endeavor. To be a successful spare is to see how you can support your sibling that has a massive challenge before them of having to embody such an important role that comes with so much pressure. And the Princess Royal has done such a great job in that role, while Harry has done everything to make his brothers, fathers, his now late grandmothers and grandfathers' lives much harder. When you think you need to be the main character, you actually start to forget the role you need to play as a supporting character for everyone else. And it's a balance, because Harry shouldn't have to sacrifice all his needs for the sake of his family. But what he's doing is sacrificing his family for the sake of all of his needs, which is the other extreme. The best thing for Harry could have been him saying, "I love you, brother, I love you, father, but the line is now shored up. I would prefer to go off and live in Africa and serve the communities there." No one in the family or out would have resented him for wanting to leave, but instead he has sought out revenge because Meghan has helped him see just how damn special he is, and he wants the family to know that he is better than them. This is why he doesn't see what he's done as a betrayal, because he feels justified. Emphasis on the just part of it, that he is doing what's right because morality is on his side, love is on his side. This battle, one-sided battle that he's having with them, is him having the second son syndrome turned into him wanting to prove that he's just better.
No one talked about how fast all of this happened. Harry had only been dating Meghan for a year and a half before the wedding. Meghan only worked in the royal family for 2 years. She was joining a family worth billions of dollars, one of the most powerful monarchies today. They had every right to keep their guard up. I'd love for you to do a deep dive into the narcissistic red flags of someone demanding you to trust them before you are ready to. How trust and friendship takes years to develop. I think this is a good lesson for all.
Yes, there's a huge difference between Harry and Meghan's courtship versus Catherine and William's. Since William really took his time to make sure he wouldn't be repeating his father's mistake of bringing someone into the family and into the role of a future queen consort without making sure they were properly prepared. He also made sure that she would do well with the family, since there is the institution, but at the end of the day, it is a family. And it's very clear that Catherine fits in really well. Now, in the Harry and Meghan situation, they moved through their courtship a little too fast and skipped some crucial steps. Harry should have insisted on meeting all of her family and spending time with them before the marriage. But of course, Meghan Markle very intently kept him away from her family, except for Doria. And I think it was to prevent him from discovering where she had massaged the truth. The best way to spot a narcissist's red flags is to see them from all facets, rather than just how they are presenting themselves to you. How are they around their parents? How are they around their friends? How are they with your friends and your family? Like I've mentioned before, narcissists try to separate you from your friends and family very quickly because they want to be the sole person influencing you. So a good red flag is, how much are they trying to sow distrust in your relationships? How much are they presenting an us versus them narrative? Are they full of excuses for why they're always having issues with other people? Saying things like, she's just jealous or he's just insecure. Can the narcissist apologize? Like, genuinely apologize and see their hand in their problems and the pain they bring to others. And narcissists want you to go at their pace since they want to be in control. So if you have boundaries and they keep violating them and emotionally pressuring you to be more trusting and intimate before you're ready, it's a strong red flag. Narcissists abhor boundaries unless they're their own.
Why did Harry write the things that he did in his book? Is he jealous of his brother? Has he too become a narcissist like Meghan?
Prince Harry's memoir was definitely written to exact revenge against his family, and specifically against his brother. Harry has embraced the way of the narcissist, and I'll address this in more detail in a different section. But the best way for him to get an upper hand on his firstborn heir to the throne older brother is to betray the family's maxim, never complain, never explain. Harry in the book violates a lot of his family's privacy, as well as reveals really unnecessary details about himself. I mean, a lot of it is cringy, especially him sharing his first sexual experience and details about his and his brother's privates. In all ways, it's a massive betrayal, because a lot of the magic of the monarchy is that they are so tight-lipped about family issues. It's the same way that Hollywood actors used to be in the golden age. People didn't really know much about these superstars, which helped maintain that mystique. It allowed these actors then to easily inhabit these colossal roles on the big screen, and the audience could feel immersed in that. And that's the problem with modern actors. I mean, they're all more like activists anyway. So over time, they become less bankable because all the audience can see is their personality rather than the character they are supposed to embody. The royal family understands this really well and know that it's more important for them to embody what the monarchy represents to their country rather than showing their individualism. This is why they shy away from anything too controversial. And Harry, with his book, has really made his best attempt to destabilize the public perception of his family by recounting some pretty silly family stories that really should not be shared.
Is Harry the victim of the situation or the problem? I'd love to hear your thoughts on Harry's book. I've always seen Meghan as the narcissist and Harry as the victim. But now I'm wondering if he's a narcissist too, or has she made him resentful, bitter, and delusional with her abuse? My question is, at what point does Harry stop being influenced and is just a bad person?
Many people have often been worried for Harry, wondering if his mental state has made him more vulnerable to Meghan's manipulation. And narcissists target people who have insecurities because they can use said insecurities to control them. And even though it's hard to spot their game early on in the relationship, after a while you really become a willing participant. And it makes sense that someone with the second son syndrome would be attracted to a narcissist because it gives him the opportunity to join the narcissist in the bubble of unshakable self-righteousness and self-confidence. So Harry has absolutely embraced the narcissism, and that's why he's so relentless and unforgiving in his attacks against his family, but then turns around and says he doesn't think the attacks are vicious. And Harry goes about making fun of his brother's baldness and how he doesn't look like his mother and all these petty attacks on his family, and then he says that he hopes that the book results in a reconciliation. Honestly, that's the worst aspect of all of this, that Harry would have the temerity to say he is doing this out of his desire to make up with his family. This is a classic narcissistic tactic, to be extremely hurtful and then say, well, I'm doing this out of the goodness of my heart. I still love you. I'll always love you. It's a control mechanism that is intended to prevent people from leaving, no matter how poorly you treat them. If you guys recall, Amber Heard did the same exact thing to Johnny Depp during the Savannah Guthrie interview after the trial and said, I still love him. Why? Why do you love someone who supposedly really mistreated you? It's meant to paint the narcissist in this holier than thou light, as if to say, oh, I'm the bigger person because I'm still able to love you despite all of your supposed flaws that I keep attacking you for. And it's a lie, because if you love someone, you don't betray them in front of the whole public. You don't mock them for their baldness and talk about their privates and their private messages to you. Nope, that's just more narcissistic propaganda.
How is it that Harry and Meghan do not understand that making money by disclosing personal family matters is itself controlling behavior? Nothing justifies the complete betrayal on display here. They are hypocrites attempting to triangulate to get what they want, completely oblivious to their own antisocial behavior. Can you talk about Harry and his hypocrisy? Like he's always on about mental health, but completely ignores the health of his family.
Yes, this is definitely a case of rules for thee, not for me, or narcissistic hypocrisy, where a person has this false sense of morality that they espouse, but their actions are inconsistent with what they say. It's the same reasoning behind Harry's constant grandstanding about limiting personal carbon emissions, and yet he and Meghan are constantly traipsing around the world on private jets. This is why it's important to look at people's actions rather than their words, that Harry only cares about his and Meghan's mental health, and not the mental health of his family. Another way he justifies his actions is that he is entitled to striking out against them and violating their privacy because he's built up this narrative of he and Meghan being victims of the institution. That's why he uses that word, institution, so often, because it reinforces the point to their supporters that the family can be looked at as less than human beings, so their mental health doesn't matter.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on Harry's Oedipal complex and his Peter Pan syndrome. Harry's whole personality has become about his mom. Thoughts?
I think the strangest aspect of Harry and Meghan sharing their truth is how much they drag Diana into the situation and try to draw these intense parallels between Meghan and Diana, which feel very forced. It's what they want us to think, but we know that these two women are very different. Meghan wants to be Diana, and Harry wants Meghan to be Diana. There are things he mentions in the book about using this cream on his privates, and in the same line he talks about how he's flooded with memories of his mother. It just makes me feel like he doesn't even realize what a strange territory he's in. He also talks about Meghan leaving the positive pregnancy test on his nightstand next to his mother's hair, and it's just all too strange. This is exactly what Freud was talking about when it came to the Oedipal complex. I'll leave it there.
At a recent family gathering, an aunt commented that if Harry's mother had lived, Harry would never have even given Meghan a second glance. And it got me thinking about the role a mother plays in shaping the way their sons view women, seeing how their fathers may or may not interact with their mothers. I'd like to see you go back in time to the disastrous marriage of Charles and Diana, the alleged incidents of William pushing tissues under the door for his mother to use when she was crying after yet another argument with Charles, and how all these things can and did influence both William and Harry's choices of future spouses.
You know, this is a really interesting question because I think Harry definitely would not have sought out a woman like Meghan if his mother hadn't died so young. The reason Harry and Meghan's relationship has lasted as long as it has is because she's giving him the avenue to play pretend that he is rescuing someone who is like a mother. We all know how flawed Charles and Diana's marriage was. I've made a video about this, so I'll link that in the description. And I think everything that happened between them could have been avoided if Her Majesty the Queen had allowed Charles to marry Camilla. Charles and Diana were really ill-suited, and even though Diana was the much younger one, I think both of them were way too immature to realize just how incompatible they really were. But had the Queen allowed Charles and Camilla to marry, the world would never have had the opportunity to get to know Princess Diana and all of her good work. What William did was really the smart thing and learned from his parents because he was also old enough to see the realities of their marriage, whereas Harry has a much more immature approach. He has a very black and white and one-sided view, which is why I think he's lashing out at his father.
Can you talk about how the royal family is responding to Harry and Meghan? I think they're doing a good job using the gray rock method, the best way to handle a narcissist. My grandma used to tell me silence is golden when it comes to handling difficult people, but I had a hard time believing her. Seeing it play out on a public level with Harry and Meghan hitting a wall is very interesting.
I completely agree with your grandmother on this. The gray rock method, for those who don't know, is a communication technique to deal with difficult people like narcissists. It involves responding to their emotions and behavior in a neutral or unresponsive way. The reason this is such a great method is that narcissists are trying to elicit a strong emotional response. Whether that's positive or negative, it doesn't matter because they enjoy feeding on it since it gives them a feeling of control over you. This is very unusual because people generally hate to get a negative response, but not the narcissist. They love it. So the strategy that the family has been employing is great because I'm sure it's irritating Harry and Meghan to no end. They want to be in a war of words with the family publicly, but the family is continuing to take the high road and letting Harry and Meghan dig their own graves in the court of public opinion.
Knowing what we know, what would be the best response from the royal family? Should Harry be disowned? Should William cut ties? Is there a way to rescue a family member from the grasps of a narcissist who figured out their weak spot?
Should Harry be disowned or stripped of his titles is really up to the British people. I know the Parliament has been having some conversations about this. I think it would be best if any decision to remove Harry's titles came from the people and the Parliament rather than the family, since Harry and Meghan will use any action against them as clear indications of racism or accuse them of jealousy. This is also why I think the palace has had to extend an invitation to the two of them for the coronation, since any snubbing will only bolster Harry and Meghan's position as victims. I think the best approach would be to do what they did during the Jubilee and the Queen's funeral. Have them come over, keep them away from the senior members, and keep them in the second row both literally and figuratively. As for how to rescue a family member from the grasps of a narcissist, you really can't. You can do your part and give your honest opinion of what you believe is going on, but aside from that, a person has to find a way to break free for themselves because they need to see that this is the wrong situation for them. Until they don't want to see that, they will refuse to leave.
Why does it seem like Meghan Markle's hiding and allowing Harry to bear the brunt of so much backlash in the mainstream media? Why has Meghan disappeared after the docuseries?
A common experience with narcissists is that they're not really present when you're going through a hard time. They'll often leave you out in the cold in those moments, with some sort of justification for why this really isn't their responsibility. But when they're hurt, struggling, or suffering, everyone better come to their defense. This is thanks to their very one-sided view that if anything bad happens to anyone, it's not really their responsibility. If anything bad bad happens to them, then it's everyone's responsibility. That's why I think she's mostly quiet. But really, she's also come out and thrown him under the bus with a statement to the Telegraph saying that she may have raised gentle concerns about whether this was the right move. It's also possible that she's trying to figure out her next move because neither her podcast nor the documentary had the positive impact that she was hoping on her reputation. I think she will come back with another victim story ready to go.
Can you discuss the Jeremy Clarkson controversy? Ignoring how I don't think it was an especially offensive newspaper column to begin with, why do you think the Sussexes flatly turned down his apology?
The Jeremy Clarkson column criticizing Meghan Markle was definitely a little too harsh, especially talking about how she should be paraded naked while people throw lumps of excrement at her. I don't think it was particularly racist or sexist. I think it's just an ill-advised comparison to how traitors used to be treated in olden times. And it's of course a reference to a Game of Thrones episode. He shouldn't have said those things, but I also fundamentally disagree with people being cancelled for something they say, but that's a topic for another time. Now, Jeremy Clarkson apologized, and here was the response from Harry and Meghan. While a new public apology has been issued today by Mr. Clarkson, what remains to be addressed is his long-standing pattern of writing articles that spread hate rhetoric, dangerous conspiracy theories, and misogyny. Unless each of his other pieces were also written in a hurry, as he states, it is clear that this is not an isolated incident shared in haste, but rather a series of articles shared in hate. They obviously have the right to respond however they see fit. And I think this serves as an insight into how they think about any criticism they get. They of course feel free to criticize anyone and everyone, but if they are criticized, they turn the incident into a lecture about hateful rhetoric. Let's just say that this response is very consistent with how they seem to think about everything. And I want to point out that there have been a lot of things they have done that people have not liked, and they have never come out and issued an apology. Not even in the situation where they clearly accused an unnamed member of the royal family of racism, and then never clarified that's not what they intended. Was that not hateful rhetoric that endangered the lives of the royal family? No, of course not. And it was all the British media's fault because they're always the only victims in any situation.
What is so attractive for individuals to be completely enamored with the left? Wonderful question. Let's say I happen to be someone who is deeply unhappy. I don't really know much of the world, but I have these insecurities and frustrations that I don't really know how to tackle or fix. And an authority figure like a professor starts to tell me that society, because of men, has been set up to be anti-women and anti-minorities and anti the little guy, because the men at the top would prefer it that way. And that the system is rigged against me, and that the other people who have money and power are very happy. They don't have any problems. Well, this whole understanding, this whole perspective is like a life raft to me. Why? Because it means that I don't need to fix my life. I'm not responsible for the problems of my life. Someone else is to blame. And I can get together with a bunch of other people who feel exactly like me, just as frustrated, just as angry, and protest the bad people in power. And in exchange, I will be rewarded by this new group of people because they'll tell me how amazing I am for being here and fighting the good fight. And I can use that feeling as a sense of moral superiority over everyone else who doesn't see my perspective and who doesn't realize the truth. What's interesting is that this belief system is absolutely orthogonal to the belief that has been most prevalent in the West of taking responsibility and learning to carry your own burdens. And that's what this channel is all about. I mean, baggage claim. Claim your own baggage and learn how to own it and deal with it. And that's what a lot of wisdom in our culture espouses. That if you can take responsibility for your own suffering, then you can start to lead a much more meaningful life. Because suffering is a reality for everyone in some form or the other. It's what you choose to do with that suffering. That's what makes all the difference in the world. But that's a path that takes a lot of work, and many people don't want to do it. And many people would rather avoid it. Also, social media has made the concept of other people suffer too very hard to believe, since so many influencers are sugarcoating and airbrushing their lives and putting them online. So today, young people are overwhelmed with proof that other people are happy, other people are lucky and much more privileged, when the reality is that money or beauty or fame don't necessarily mean that you're living a wonderful, happy life. A lot of happiness can and is faked online. Thank you for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any questions that you would like me to address in future videos on any subject, please drop them in the comment section. Just make sure to start your comment with the word question. It'll make it easier for me to parse through it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.